Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of Gifted Monkey TV, all things toy and toy related. I'm your host, Jordan Preston, and today we have a really special episode for you. We're kicking off today a new side that we're going to call Gifted Monkey Movie Reviews. And we're going to do our first movie review on a great, super movie that just came out. Come back and see which one it is.
Respect the monkey!
Dun 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 dun. That's right, guys. Today we're going to review on our new segment, Gifted Monkey Movie Review. We're going to review the new Man of Steel movie, which just came out summer, June 14th. So it came out Friday, a few days ago, and we're going to review it right now. Let me let you guys know something. First of all, thanks for joining us again. Second of all, this is not going to be a spoiler-free review. This is going to have some spoilers because I'm going to overview the movie itself. And during the course of this overview, we might hit on some spoilers. In fact, we will hit on some spoiler things that happen in the movie. So if you did not see Man of Steel yet, don't watch this, or put me on mute and just look at my cuteness and go ahead on, or turn it off. But if you have watched Man of Steel and you liked it and you enjoyed it and you want to get into it, I'm going to talk about it right now. All right, here we go. So if you're watching right now, assume that you have seen Man of Steel, the movie. I love this movie. First of all, let me start off. I watched the last few days. I've been watching some of the reviews and watching some of the comments on the Man of Steel movie, and I've heard a lot of people say, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Or it was okay, it was good, but I love this movie. This movie was a great foray for DC Comics to enter into their world that they are creating. I think it was a very strong and just Superman. Now let me tell you something right now. This Superman is not your daddy's Superman. So a lot of the people I think that are hating on us or feeling like they didn't quite like it too much is because they expect, even in their subconscious, they expect a Christopher Reeve type of Superman, which is the feel-good Man of Steel, yes Lois, I never lie. That type of Superman. And this was a more ambiguous moral code Superman. But you got to remember, in the story that Zack Snyder and his team and DC decided to tell on this particular story of the Man of Steel, this is a Man of Steel learning himself. He is not yet Superman. He's not yet got himself going 100% where he knows exactly who he is or where he's going. You ever have a first day of school? Could you be expected to know everything about that school, everything about the teachers and students, even how you feel about that school? You remember, you went in feeling one way on the first day of school, and by 4 months later, you're like, wow, this is amazing, or wow, I hate it. But your opinion changed. Who you were in that school changed by the time you grew in that semester. It's just like that. We're looking at Superman at the beginning of his semester of Superman. So in that context of this movie, I thought it was very great. I thought Henry Cavill did a great job as the Man of Steel. He was a Man of Steel learning who he is. And under that direction and under that foray, I think he did a great job of that. Now this look of Superman, his facial look, is a little different too. It's kind of more on the Tom Welling from Smallville, the TV series, with the puffier hair and the different looking face. I mean, he's an attractive guy, no doubt, but it's a different looking face. He's not the chiseled, beautiful type of Christopher Reeve look like we had in the 70s and that era of Superman. Once again, hearkening back to that Boy Scout moral code America Superman that we grew up with. This is a more, albeit handsome and chiseled Superman, this is a more guy Superman, a guysy dude Superman. He's learning his place. I thought that was very ballsy of DC to do that, and of Zack Snyder. I loved Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I had a little question when the trailers came out months before. I had a little question about Amy Adams. I didn't always mind her, but I didn't know if I'd like her as Lois. But no, this is not the dark-haired, sexy, even the animated series, miniskirt wearing, sexy, hot Lois who always has an answer for everything. This isn't that Lois. This Lois is a new take on her, which I genuinely liked once I saw the actual movie. Amy Adams is more of a journalist, and yes, she's still hot-headed, she's still stubborn, she's still go-getting, and she's still a strong person. But she's they forgot the sexy quality to give you a more realistic woman of purpose, a woman of I get the job done, a hard news reporter, which I liked for that. Michael Shannon as Zod. I loved him as Zod. I didn't compare him to Terrence Stamp, or I didn't find myself looking at my watch when he was talking. I love his passion. He too was a different take on a Zod. His Zod was more, I was bred to do one thing. I'm a man on a mission. Don't fault me. This is how I'm hardwired. This is how I'm programmed. I'm going to complete what I'm meant to do. One of the real jewels, speaking of Zod, was his second in command, the chick for Fiora. She was fantastic. She was hard edge, and she got the work done. She was putting in some work with her hands. She was fighting in super speed. She had a little thing with one of the head generals of the American Army. She had a little thing with him. They kept knocking heads, and they had their own little thing, and I love that. I love that she was sexy, yet very strong, determined, and powerful, kick-assery in her own right. Like that word? I love it. And I thought Kevin Costner was good as Jonathan Kent. He didn't have a lot of screen time, but when he did, he was very impassioned, very also a man conflicted. What do I do with my son? I love him, but this world's going to eat him up if he gets out there and shows what he can do, and not necessarily in a good way. So he was a conflicted guy, thrown into the mix of loving his kid, but yet knowing what the world can bring, being of this earth all his life. And I like that about him. Some heart-touching moments with that. Diane Lane, once again, not a lot of screen time, but I love when she came on. She was very cool, did her part admirably, and went on. Russell Crowe as Kal-El's dad, Jor-El. Now, I like this. This was a different type of Jor-El that we've seen. This Jor-El kicked butt. He had a definite strength about him. And we got to see a little bit of Krypton, and Krypton is not also not a Krypton we've seen. This Krypton is a little harsher and a more stricter ruled, regimented Krypton. It had a way of being and a way of conduct and a way of harnessing its civilization by its rules. It wasn't a light, bright, fancy, cool place to live like we all see it in other places. So it was a very harsher world. And we get to understand more why Zod felt the way he did, why he was such a man on a mission during the rest of the movie. I love that. I love Russell Crowe's impassion. I love that Russell Crowe and his Jor-El character kept popping up during the movie, especially in that hologram form, because that was very cool. It gave Kal-El, which is Superman's real name, birth name, it gave him a sense of completion with his dad. So there's not a lot of angst that will be had for Superman 2 and all the rest of the Superman. He won't be going, oh, I wish I had time to find out more about who I am, more about who my dad was. Because that's answered. He was kind of complete with, he got the best of both worlds with his both dads. And he got to understand a little bit more about Krypton in his flashbacks and in his dealings with Dad. And I love that they did that. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to also answer some of the complaints and some of the questions that I've heard a lot going on in the reviews of Superman. Excuse the helicopter going by as I do this review. But Superman, as we talk now, has already grossed, it's been out like 4 days, it's already grossed over $125 million. So it's greatly poised, DC and Warner, to do a Superman 2 or to move on and get the fear out of the way for their other superhero projects, which I'm so glad about. They made this Superman a little bit more of a darker reality, and that seems to be the route DC has consciously chosen to take their superheroes, in contrast to Marvel and Avengers and that type of thing, where it's like a more of a bouncy, isn't it cool to be a superhero, isn't it cool the action that we do type. You get that type of feeling once you see a Avengers or a Marvel type movie. DC has gone more earthbound, if you will, more gritty and reality based, where it's not always pretty, it's not always great, it's not always a great outcome. Everything isn't always black and white, and they chose to go that way, which is weird because if you look at the beginning of comic books, DC was always the bright Superman, Aquaman, Flash, Super Friends, the joyous ones, and that we watched as a kid and read as a kid, and as we got older as teenagers, we switched to Marvel, which was always a little more grittier, hard-hitting, and reality-based. But in the live-action world, they've switched roles. Marvel has become the more brighter, feel-good movies when you finish with them, and DC has become the more a little darker, something to think about, edgier, consequence-type movies in their live-action films. It's kind of interesting, huh? But this is like that. I think it fits very well into the DC pantheon of heroes they have come out in the DC mythos. They can definitely fit. Now they've introduced supernatural things, aliens and buildings being destroyed in a big scope of devastation, which now makes it easier for them to add fantastical things like an Aquaman or a superpowered Amazon princess and things like that to get on a dark side, a world destroyer as foes. It really lends itself nice to that. If I had to say something about it, I thought it was very good on action. I love the action of this thing. Another complaint I read a lot, or concern, where people said, there's too much action. Well, what do you want in a superhero movie? A Superman superhero movie. It's funny how you can't please people. If we gave them a softer, gentler Superman like we did in Superman Return, who always is in angst or contemplative and just lifted stuff pretty much as his power and prevented things from falling on things, then they complain there's no action. When's he going to fight? When's Superman going to kick ass? But they give us a kick-ass Superman. There's too much action, too much violence. Get out of here. This is a Superman we wanted to see, where you see him use his fist, you see him pound stuff, you see him break through stuff, you see him crush stuff, you see him lift stuff, you see his strength, you see what a guy with this type of strength can do. You see heat vision at its fullest. You see heat vision going on and destroying stuff and hurting and doing things. That's really the Superman you want to see. Be honest. Isn't it that type of Superman you want to see? That's what you get in this. A lot of people were talking about it's too much devastation. Well, let me ask you, in reality, if you had two superpower beings, one being having a crew of people who were bent on reorganizing and redesigning the earth and not caring an iota about the sheep or the ants that live here, i.e. the human race, what would you have but pure unadulterated obliteration of somebody's car or somebody's office building or somebody's life, because they simply don't care about that stuff. It's just collateral damage. So you got one person like that, and you got him fighting another person with super strength, and they're battling in the midst of a city. You're going to have massive demolition. Not only that, but Zod had this kind of like gravitron world reshaper thing that primed this earth by reconfiguring from the inside out, and it made the gravity just crush down on things on a squirrel mile circular outward motion. So it was destroying Metropolis at the same time as the battle was raging with Metropolis and Superman against the Kryptonians that were invading. So you had a lot of devastation. It had to happen. No, this is not your daddy's Superman. A little side note, when I first saw Christopher Reeves on the screen on Superman 1 and 2, when I walked out of that movie, even the animated series that came on in the 90s, when I would watch that, at the end of each episode, I always felt a little taller. Always wanted to be a little more stronger in my moral code. I wanted, and this is no kidding, I'm telling on myself, but it's true. After I would watch even the animated series or the Justice League in the Superman heavy episode, I wanted to have a stronger moral center when I finished that episode. What would Superman do in this case? Would he yell? Would he complain? Would he cry? Or would he just suck it up and go for it and go for the win? I wanted to be a little better person. This movie didn't make me feel like that when I came out. When I came out of this movie, I said, heck yeah, that battle was great. That fight scene was wonderful. This Superman kicked ass. I love the action in this thing. I love how it moved. But it didn't make me want to be a better person. And I'm going to say this. I don't think it was designed for that. This was not a Christopher Reeve movie. Christopher Reeves, his interpretation and their takeaway and their writing of it was a Superman who was sure of himself, knew his moral code, no black and white. He knew exactly who he was by the time he put on that costume. This Superman is not even called Superman through 99.9% of the movie. He's called Kal-El, his birth name on Krypton, or Clark, his Earth name. Through the flashbacks and through everything that we're experiencing, he's called Kal-El or Clark, and he accepts those names. There is no Superman yet. He doesn't even put on the uniform until midway through the movie. And even when he does, he puts it on as a uniform, as an homage and a respect to his dad, Jor-El's wishes, and to carry on that symbol of hope in this wardrobe, this uniform. It's not a costume, this uniform. And that's what he was doing. He wasn't saying, I'll put this on and I'll fight crime as Superman. He wasn't doing that. He hasn't learned his true moral code yet. He hasn't learned who he is yet. He's feeling his way through. And to me, that's some of the answers to why he did some of the things he did and why some of the things didn't get done. Some people say, well, why didn't he take the fight with Zod? Spoiler alert. Why didn't he take the fight with Zod out of Metropolis? Well, he was new to this. He had never, in the movie, he never fought anybody yet until Zod came along. He had never had a fist fight in what we've seen because he always was afraid of hurting humans. He never had a fist fight. He never was confronted with somebody with his power. So all of a sudden, he, A, just put on the costume a day or two ago, and in two, he's automatically jumped, if you will, jacked, by somebody that has equally amount of power and speed as he does. If you've ever been in a fight, or if you ever watch UFC fighting or a boxing match even on television, as Monday morning quarterbacks, we sit back and go, man, well, how could he not duck that? If I was him, I would have hit him like that, moved around here and jumped on him like that and got out of this move like doing that. Yeah, it's easy to say when you're not in it. But if you've ever been in a fight, your immediate instinct kicks in and you're just worried about survival, getting the guy off you or getting your punches in or moving the guy around real quickly to get in a position to hurt him or get him off from hurting you. You're in survival mode. None of that beauty in your mind of what I would do. Oh man, it'd be cool if I move. No, you don't think like that. So you got a guy with your powers jumping on you at every turn. Your immediate survival is to fight him back right where you are. And this was a Superman that couldn't reflect back and reference a time, well, this is what I did with Darkseid. I got him out of the city. This is what I did with Doomsday. I moved him away from safety. He doesn't have any reference points. This is his first time with a battle. So he's fighting it right where he is. Now, I think that left good ground for it when Superman 2 comes out, and it will, for him to be the new Superman. This will be the new Superman 2. He would have, by that time that happens, he will have his powers for a while. He would be exposed to the world as a while. His concerns of will they accept me will be answered. So he will be able to strengthen and establish his moral code more. He will have a reference point to go next time when some world invader comes and go, I'm not going to have another episode like happened with Zod and destroy half of the city. We're taking this to the desert. We're taking this to the ocean. We're taking it to space. He'll do that. But this time he's new. He doesn't know what to do yet. Doesn't even think in those terms of battle stratagem yet. Remember, Superman was not born to be a warrior. Unlike Batman who trained himself, or Captain America who's trained, or any other battle-worthy guy who's trained in stratagem to know that stuff. Superman is just a guy who's super strong and super smart. You know, he's not a battle scientist. So he has to learn those things. Also, let me see what else. I mentioned already be a great entrance to his world. I love Clark's story. They did Clark Kent in a great way. They did him in retrospect. As they moved the story forward, Kal-El, Clark Kent, would think back on things or harken back to things when he was a kid. And they did a great job of showing how difficult it would be, once again, learning your new powers. This is a kid that could take out a whole football team, and he had to shrink his powers down because of his dad and his mom, his Earth dad and mom's wishes to shrink yourself. Don't let anybody know who you are, because it won't be to your benefit or to the world's benefit if they know what you can do. They'll treat you like a lab rat. And so he was always taught to shrink himself down, and how that had to be weird. And even discovering new things, being able to see through your teacher's face, through her skull, through her body, through the next room, all at one time, and that coming on you in one day. You didn't even know you had that yesterday, and today here you are doing that. So that type of stuff. Little spoiler cheats. Look for the LexCorp signal on the oil tanker. Jor-El pushes an oil tanker towards Superman. A little homage to Superman 2, that battle with Zod. Zod pushes an oil tanker towards Superman, and it has LexCorp written on it. Also, I think they have a Wayne Tech on a satellite that Superman damages in a fight scene. It says Wayne Tech. So a little homage that they are prepping you that these guys do exist, and that they will be in the continuum of the Superman universe. I love that. They also had Emil Hamilton, the scientist. If you ever watched Justice League animated series or the Superman animated series, Emil Hamilton was a big part of Superman's life and one of his characters in life. Also, remember, it gets seen that Jor-El, when he finds his Fortress of Solitude, which is really just a Kryptonian spaceship that landed thousands of years ago in the ice. He makes that his Fortress of Solitude. He's surveying it, and you see a lot of the pods that the Kryptonians came in when it crash landed. They're dead and they're skeletal. They died in their crash pod. But be on the lookout. There's one pod that has its lid open and no one's in there. I think they're laying the groundwork, if they want to have his cousin, Supergirl, be introduced. So that's kind of interesting and fun and exciting, too. I definitely think that this lays its groundwork for a Superman 2, yes, no doubt. And then, like I said, in this Superman 2, we'll see a stronger, tried and true, American way Superman that we harken back to Christopher Reeves in the comic books of the old, because he will be more sure of himself and knows what he wants. Also, one more thing. A lot of people are hollering about the end. Spoiler alert, Zod dies and he gets his neck snapped by Superman. And people go, oh my God, how could you do that? Superman would never kill. Well, yes, he would. Given this set, remember Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And this is no more truer than it is at the end of this movie. Superman has Zod in a headlock. Zod is shooting his heat vision, full blast, in a room with a family, mom, dad, 2 kids, and he's slowly aiming it toward him. And the only thing keeping him from destroying the family is Superman's script on him. Superman's begging him, don't do this, let's find another way, stop. Zod basically tells him, and he tells him this, and so does his disciples all through the movies, it's what I do. There's no other option for me. You either stop me by killing me, or you won't stop me. Letting you know, as soon as Superman released him, if he saved that family, Zod would go somewhere in the world and kill millions more without a hesitation. So Superman snapped his neck. And he showed immediate remorse by going crazy, screaming and yelling to himself, and even little tears coming out of doing that. And I think that action in Superman 2 and the rest of Superman's career with movies will make the moral code of I will never kill again. I will always find a way. And that's when we get that Superman, the Chris Reeve Superman who doesn't kill and finds an alternative and does that type of thing. So I think all that stuff is coming in the next Superman 2 and beyond. And also we don't even see Superman get to use all his powers, breath and everything, because in this movie he's learning them. He's still learning them. I like when they showed him how to fly. He bounced and leaped, harking back to the first comic book, leaped buildings in a single bound. He leaped for a little while before he got determination up to try to fly, and then he flew, and that was great too. Great costume, great casting, great directing by Zack Snyder. Thank you for not making this a sucker punch, doing your 300 thing on this one, and Watchmen. I loved it. And I think this will be a great Superman 2 coming up. I enjoyed it. Tell me what you guys think. Subscribe below, write down and tell me, what's your favorite Superman movie? Who's your favorite Superman? Even if it's an animated character or the Superman from Lois and Clark, whatever you like, a television character, tell me who's your favorite Superman. Was this Man of Steel your best movie yet? What did you feel about it? And just don't tell me it sucked or I loved it. Back yourself up, dudes, dudettes. Tell me why you liked it or tell me why it sucked for you. Just don't say it. Tell me why. I'll read it and I'll get back to you and we'll talk. We'll have a dialogue. But thank you for joining us on our first edition of Gifted Monkey Movie Reviews. Tell me what you thought. Subscribe, comment below, and remember, respect the monkey. See you next time.